South Carolina, and a place which harbours a difficult past. It was here that the first shots were fired in the American Civil War, when southern states fought for the right to keep slaves. Behind me are the two rivers of Charleston, which merge with the Atlantic Ocean, and across these waters, slave ships plied their evil trade, making Charleston the nation's slave capital. But today we've come to Charleston to see what voters here in the American South make of Trump's presidency amid claims that America is divided more than ever before over issues like race, gun control, immigration and health. Plus, what do they make of Trump's style of presidency, his polarizing use of language, the unprecedented number of resignations and sackings in his administration? That's our global questions. Trump's America, a nation divided? Hello, I'm Zainab Badawi, and this is the BBC's Global Questions. Welcome to all of you, wherever you're watching or listening on TV, radio and online. Let me tell you where we are. We are at Legree Waring House, which is one of the most historic old buildings in Charleston. And in fact, this is the site where English settlers first arrived in 1670. We have a wonderful panel and an equally great audience who've travelled from all over the state of South Carolina. Give me a chance, will you, to get onto the stage. And audience, while I'm doing that, could you give our panel and yourselves a round of applause? Well, that's a nice southern warm welcome there. Everything they say about southern hospitality is true. Thank you very much indeed. So, Congressman Marsha Blackburn, and I said congressman, because that's how you prefer to be referred to. You're from neighbouring Tennessee. You're a strong supporter of Donald Trump, and you have one of the most conservative voting records in the House of Representatives, but you now have your eye on a Senate seat in Tennessee. Very nice to see you. Dr. Bernice King, you are the youngest child of the iconic civil rights leader Martin Luther King. You run the King Center in Atlanta, Georgia, and you say you want to continue his unfinished work in the fight for racial justice and economic equality. Mark Burns is a native of South Carolina and has been described as Donald Trump's top pastor by Time magazine. You preach a twin message of Jesus and Trump, both in your church and in your evangelical TV network. Jamie Harrison, you are another... I'll let you have your applause. Jamie Harrison, you are another local chap. You were born a few miles from here. You're now based in Columbia, which is actually the capital of South Carolina, and you're seen by many as the future of the Democratic Party. You're currently Associate Chairman of the Democratic National Committee. And from Washington, we have Frank Luntz, one of America's best-known political and election consultants and strategists, and you're also a pollster. You advise more than 50 top companies and CEOs, amongst others, and you say that you can help find out what Americans really want. That's very ambitious. Welcome to all our panel. All right, so let us go to our first question. Caroline Greenblatt, you're a student. Your question.
So you tell someone you are a Republican and they shame you and shun you simply because of the word Republican. Likewise, you tell someone you are a Democrat and you get branded as a crazy liberal. Was it really Donald Trump who divided America so viciously, or was America split long before this election?
Thank you very much, Caroline. And you know what, I'm just going to say, we had this question sent in from Susan, who's a teacher here in South Carolina, on social media. And she says, why does it seem that Trump supporters are viewed with disdain and their opinions vilified? Cannot someone be a Trump supporter and be intelligent, well-informed, have a love for our country, want all to improve their lot in life? Congressman. about that?
I think that whether someone is Republican or Democrat or independent, when you sit down and you talk with people, what do they want? They want our nation to be safe and secure. They want to have opportunity for everyone. And what they want is to have individuals show respect and make certain that we have a good, robust political debate. And to the answer for the question, I would say our nation has been so well served by having civil, robust political debate and having individuals in the public square with freedom of speech and the ability to put forward those ideas. And by the way, next week is Free Speech Week. And this is something that we need to realize, civil discourse and agreeing to disagree, but having those conversations, it is what has managed to keep this nation free.
Jamie Harrison, that's true, isn't it? I mean, there has been a certain amount of vilification about Donald Trump supporters, and you can't be intelligent, as the questioners say, and be a supporter of Trump.
Well, listen, I live in South Carolina, which is a land of Trump. There's a lot of vilification of Democrats in this state as well. I mean, listen, bottom line is this, and I know that the Congresswoman mentioned next week is going to be Freedom of Speech Week. And what does that mean? Does that mean that the president is going to tell us how we can exercise that freedom? I mean, the thing that is important, and there are a lot of things that I think have exacerbated the divisions between the parties. We're not going to agree on everything, but we have to have the respect for each other and understand that we all come from different backgrounds and have different experiences. And I expect you to have as much appreciation and respect for my background that I have for yours. And that does not mean all of the divisive hate and rhetoric that we're starting to see in Washington, D.C., that I think is exacerbated by our president.
Pastor Mark Burns, divisions exacerbated by President Trump.
Well, let's just be clear. This division within our country started way before Donald Trump. This country was set up to be divided the moment that black people was forced to come to this country way before Donald Trump ever stepped foot as president of the United States. As long as there's Republicans and Democrats, there's going to be some confrontation within our American government. I mean, I think that's politics in general. I do agree that there.
So it's okay, politics in general, divisions, the rhetoric.
Without question. I mean, because again, but my concern is this. You're absolutely right. We are in a society to where conflict sells. Okay, to where confrontation sells. Okay, the fact of the matter is, just because I'm a Republican and a black Republican don't make me an Uncle Tom, a sellout, a coon, or any of those negative derogatory terms simply because I'm proud to be an American.
Bernice King.
Well, what I want to say is my father left us with something. He said we must learn to live together as brothers, and I add sisters, or together we will perish as fools. I think at the end of the day, we've got to spend some time learning each other. We all have our different opinions, perspectives, and ideologies. But at the end of the day, if we don't find a way to cross over and spend time and for a moment suspend our right to be right so that we can learn and take in what other people think and what they feel before we have the opinion, I think we're not going to grow as a nation. I think we're going to further polarize. And so I think we're in that season now that we've got to learn because we're going to destroy ourselves.
Okay, Frank, the question was, is it really Donald Trump who's divided America so viciously, or was America split long before his election?
And there's a specific date. And it was November 4th of 2000 when George W. Bush and Al Gore finished in a tie. And for the next 6 weeks, they fought over it in Florida. And for the first time in modern American history, a winner was chosen, and 25 to 30% of the public felt that that election was stolen. that people on the Democratic side believed that Bush was put into office in an illegitimate way. It was fed to them by those on the extremes. And so we had a country that the president was not thought of as being legitimate. And from that division in 2000, it's gotten worse. But I want you, by applause.
It's got worse when? From Trump
it got
or
worse
before Trump?
under George W. Bush. It got worse beyond that under Barack Obama, and it's worse today.
Caroline, thank you very much indeed. Did you want to come back very quickly on what you've heard?
Dr. King, I thought your response was beautiful, and I completely agree that in order to stop this hate from running rampant across our country, it's important that we learn each other, that we learn our backgrounds, and that we come to understand and love one another. Because at the end of it all, we are all human and we are all American.
Thank you very much. Okay. Nicole Claiborne, your question, please.
Do you think Donald Trump is a racist?
Jamie.
To see this president embrace some of the most negative, nasty aspects of society makes me really go to that question. And I'm not one of those people that likes to throw you're a racist and this on anybody. That's not who I am.
But is he a racist? That was the question.
You know what? I think that his actions have been racist.
Because
I really do believe that.
Congressman Marshall.
I think Donald Trump is someone who wants the best for this nation and for all Americans.
It was a very simple question, Congressman.
And
Needs a very simple answer.
Donald Trump wants the best for everybody in this nation and for all Americans.
So is he a racist or not, though?
No.
He isn't.
No.
Bernice King.
Well, I think the verdict's still out. I think he's got a lot of work to prove otherwise, but the verdict is still out.
Frank Luntz.
I appreciate the question, and I respect the questioner. But what does that solve by asking that question?
That's right.
Well, it's okay. Don't question her right to ask the question.
No, you didn't
Freedom
want to
of speech
hear
and all that. It was a simple question. What's your answer?
You didn't want to hear from them. How many of you think Donald Trump's a racist?
No, Frank Luntz. Frank Luntz. I know you are a pollster, but we can't keep on doing straw polls with our audience.
Do you want my answer?
Your
do you want my answer?
Yes.
That question, and we heard from the people here, you listened to it at home, that you immediately got riled up and you immediately came apart. If we really want to do what the five of you just said, by bringing people together, right, that question hurts us. It doesn't help us.
That's right. All right. Pastor Mark Burns.
You know, it's amazing to me how the world realized Donald Trump wasn't a racist until he decided to run for president. I mean, the fact of the matter is the NAACP, the NAN coalition, they all was very happy to stand beside Donald Trump and give him awards for his support.
These are organizations to advance
And the thing
black
is
rights.
this, listen, I'm a black man from the deep south, from South Carolina. Okay, my father is in the audience. I know what real racism looked like. If Donald Trump is a racist, he must be the worst racist in the tire of all white supremacy, because he obviously don't know that he shouldn't be hanging out with black people.
But
he obviously failed to realize that he shouldn't be hanging out with Jews. He failed to realize that he shouldn't be hanging out with homosexuals. He must be the worst white supremacist in the history of white supremacists for us to still be asking, is Donald Trump a racist?
Okay.
It's a foolish question.
Nicole Claiborne, you asked the question. What's your answer? Is Donald Trump a racist?
I will say this. I am the third vice chair of the Charleston County GOP. I am a conservative Republican, and I do not think that he is a racist. I have experienced racism. I don't believe he's a racist. And I think it is an appropriate question because that is the way that the media tries to portray him all the time.
Well,
absolutely.
Jamie Harrison.
Folks, this is not about what the media is trying to portray. This is based on people's actions.
Racists hate black people.
But Pastor, I'm reclaiming my time. Okay, so Take a look at somebody's actions.
Okay.
It's not just their words. Look at their actions. Look at how the disparate treatment between Puerto Rico, Florida, and Texas. Explain the difference to me. Explain the difference to me. Look at the difference. The both sides things in Charlottesville. Look at the You even take the NFL protests, right?
We're going to come to questions on those.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
All right.
I'm gonna put a thumbtack in that because I want to come back.
All right, Jamie, you mentioned Charlottesville. In fact, I think we've got a question from Kat Morgan related to Charlottesville. Of course, the demonstrations in August between far-right supporters and anti-racist protesters. Yeah.
Yeah, so my question follows up on this question. So I want to thank you for asking that question, and I think it's really interesting that as a white woman, I do believe he's racist, and we had a black woman who doesn't. And I think that's really profound, the fact that we can disagree about that. So my question is, particularly for the pastor, but for everyone, how does a person of faith justify colluding with the administration of a man who has complimented the white supremacist in Charlottesville and refused to distance himself from or disavow of overt racists?
Thank you, Kat Morgan. It was to you, Pastor Mark Burns.
The fact of the matter is this. Until we can get to the point where we stop calling people who are not racist, we can't really have a real dialogue, conversation. The fact of the matter is, there's too many of us, especially within the black community, there are too many of us within the black community who are making decisions based off of feelings and not facts, emotions, and not real truths. The fact of the matter is, listen, my father who is in the audience have dealt with real KKK, real racists who stuck the cross in the yard because my grandmother was too light-skinned, because my grandfather was a black man, and they thought she was a white woman. I have a cousin that was killed who we believe that was unjustified. I know what real racism is. I know what it looks like. And the fact of the matter is, it's not Donald Trump.
Harlan Green in the audience wanted to put a question, I think, related to the Charlottesville protests and counter-protests.
You know, we're here in a spot haunted by history where we see past repeating all the time, and I think we all bring our own histories here as well too. In Charlottesville, my parents came to this country as immigrants. They were Holocaust survivors. In Charlottesville, the marchers went by the Reform Synagogue and they started shouting, "They're the Jews, they are the Jews, we will replace the Jews." And the police could not guarantee the safety of these people within that congregation. And in America, people, freedom of religion, were told to go out the back door because they could not be protected. And I don't want a defense of that. I'm real curious about your commentary on that. How can this happen in America that we all want to be great? How is this allowed to happen?
All right, thank you. Congressman?
You know, and I appreciate that question so much because you do look at the lack of civil discourse and the lack of ability to come to the public square and the concern for individuals that have different views and different opinions. And then what you want is to preserve the ability to have peaceful protests. You want people to feel free to express their opinion and to do it without retribution, and to do it in safety and security.
Jamie?
On the Charlottesville point, this is a thing, and this is not a Trump or Clinton or Democrat Republican thing as it relates to whether or not we embrace or tolerate white supremacy in this country. Because Bob Dole, George H.W. Bush, when David Duke said that he was going to support him or said something, came out fervently and said...
Can we just say David Duke is a Ku Klux Klan?
The head of the KKK,
leader,
ran for president and what have you. But those Republican leaders came out strong and said, we do not condone what he believes, we don't condone who he is, we don't support who he is. That is not what the President of the United States did at this point in time.
Sure,
it is not.
Bernie's coming out.
I wanted to make this point too. I think we keep missing critical moments in America to really deal with this race issue. Things happen and we move on. And it takes courageous leadership. And he was asking, why is it not happening? It's because we don't have the courageous and consistent leadership to push the pause button and say, we've got to deal with our race issue in America. And we have to set the tone and tenor for that in various communities across the nation at the same time. We don't address it directly and consistently. And until we do that, we're going to continue to have this further polarization in America.
Okay, got another question.
So this is a question about the NFL issue. As you all know, President Trump has been very critical of the NFL players for taking the knee during the game. He's called them unpatriotic. Given Trump's track record, should he be the one questioning somebody's patriotism?
Jamie.
Patriotism, it's an interesting thing. There is nobody who loves this country more than I do. I believe this is a great nation. That does not mean that everything that happens in this nation is good and just. There's a lot of historical pain in this country. And African Americans as a group, there's probably no more patriotic folks. And why did I say that? It's because there were black men who went to World War I, who went to World War II, went to the Korean War, came back here to the United States, came back here to the South, and were treated as second-class citizens. These are people who put their lives on the line for the freedoms that we have. And so then to have our president question these guys. You know, my question, if I were president of the United States and I saw somebody kneeling, I would ask, well, why are you kneeling? Did he ever thought to ask these guys, well, why are you kneeling? What is so wrong that you see that this is something that you kneel? And they kneel in not a sign of disrespect, but in a sign of respect. And people say, well, kneeling is disrespectful. How is kneeling disrespect? When I go to sleep at night and I get on my knees, both of them, and I pray to the Lord God, that's out of respect. When I got on my one knee and asked my wife to marry me, that was out of respect. These guys did it in a silent protest, saying that there are injustices in this nation that need to be answered. Right. And we're not going to disrespect the flag, and we're not going to disrespect our armed soldiers. But we need America to stand up.
Congressman Marsha Blackburn.
Yes, and thank you. I have a resolution before Congress right now that says it is the sense of the House that Americans will practice U.S. Code, which is the protocol for conduct during the playing of the national anthem. And I will tell you, I think it's appropriate. You stand, you honor the men and women who have sacrificed, who've bled, who've died, and you honor that service and what that national anthem stands for. And I will tell you, I kneel at the cross. I stand for the national anthem.
Bernice King, what do you think your late father, Martin Luther King, would have made of the take a knee? Do you think he would have supported them, agreed with Jamie or Congressman Marsha?
Well, that's a difficult question because he's not here. But I think first and foremost, obviously my father was a patriot. He respected the American flag, but he always wanted America to be better and do better and reflect what it wrote on paper. And so I would say probably in his spirit, he would support a person's right of free speech.
He would have marched.
I don't think he would have just marched. My father had a philosophy and a methodology of nonviolence and their processes that he followed. But I certainly think that he would commend the courage of someone standing up for what they believe in.
Frank Luntz, just very quickly, what does America think?
America believes that the players have the right to free speech. Americans believe that the players have the right to take a knee. They believe that they should not have exercised that in front of the flag during the anthem.
Absolutely.
This, in one way, is the best of America, because we're having our voice and we're being heard. And another way, it's the worst of America, because people get to see the lack of respect that we have towards each other because we disagree.
Let's go to our next question now. Claire Gibbons, your question, please.
The question I have for the panel is the name calling by the president against anyone who disagrees with him has been particularly toxic and disheartening. How do we bridge the divide when facts are ignored, derided as fake news, and informed, educated voters are deemed elitists?
Okay, thank you, Claire. Well, we had an opposing view there sent to us by Ross Gwynn on social media asking, why do the so-called non-partisan mass media seek to portray everything President Trump does as negative and everything Liberal or Democrats do as positive? Do you really think we, the people, are not noticing their liberal bias? Jamie Harrison?
Many times I wake up in the morning at about 6 o'clock, 6:30, and I look at my phone and I look at the Twitter feed. And I look at what our president puts on the Twitter feed. And listen, you don't have to be a Democrat or Republican. You just look at the Twitter feed. When you go on Twitter and you demagogue people and you call them names and you make up little monikers for them like Rocket Man for whatever, or you undermine your Secretary of State when he's negotiating. The President of the United States, that role is the most powerful role in the world. And you get to make the world and the frame and the discussion. You drive that. Well, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, needs to take some responsibility, because we always talk about taking responsibility. He needs to take responsibility for the rhetoric that he is utilizing, and that's what people are reacting to.
All right. It was actually a question about the media and whether the media tries to portray everything that President Trump does as negative. Frank Luntz, we know that the President has said that he's not very happy with the mainstream media, even saying, why don't you have a look at their licenses and see if they can be revoked and so on? I mean, quite a war between him and the mass media, main media.
He shouldn't do it. I say to the people here, because we got a few Trump people here, he shouldn't speak that way. This is not how a president speaks, because you're setting a tone. And we have to be honest. And the media, the way they treat him in the press conference, if you've watched it, they're the rudest, and they interrupt him, and they do not stop, and they heckle him because they're trying to get him to lose his temper. We've never had, they're both responsible. We're all responsible for this. And the more that we heckle, the more that we see others in our lives, people in positions of power doing this, the worse it's going to be for our society. Yes, the president doesn't speak the language he should. Yes, the media does not treat him with respect and want to take him down.
All right.
You're both right.
We've got more questions on this issue. Let's take one from Charlie James. Your question.
Thank you very much. I hate to inform the BBC, but if you think you've come to a community that's divided, you are mistaken. This is a community that came together after the Walter Scott shooting. We are a community that came together after the Emanuel 9 shooting. We are a community that can argue among each other. I've been arguing with this lady right here all evening. As wrong as she may be, this young lady is a Charlestonian, and we stick together. So it was the media that came here after the Emanuel 9 looking for division. It was the media that came here looking for buildings on fire. It was the media that came here looking for a divided community, but they didn't find it, and they won't find it. That is why the BBC and other media outlets, the mainstream media here in this country, are trying to continue this narrative. How can you say you're not complicit in the division that is going on in this country right now? When you host an event at a setting as beautiful and gracious as it may be, it is divisive in its nature. How can the media say that they are not complicit in the division that is going on in this country?
Thank you very much, Charlie. We'll take that as a comment. And when you refer to the Emanuel 9, of course, you're talking about the tragic events of July 2015, when 9 people, including the pastor, were mowed down in the Mother Emanuel Church here in Charleston. Annie Mineri, your question, please.
What effect does the president's use of social media to interact with the people in his cabinet have on how the world sees the United States?
Congressman Marsha Blackburn, your view.
I appreciate that the president uses Twitter to get his message out. And I think what you have to do is look at why the president does that. And it's because many times the mainstream media does not accurately report what he has to say. And he goes directly to the American people with what he has to say. And Donald Trump was elected because people are tired of what is going on in Washington, D.C. They are tired of elitism. They are tired of a government that is not responsive to their needs. And they elected him because they want him to address health care. They want him to address tax reform, immigration, our nation's infrastructure. And everybody seems to be frustrated with the U.S. Senate.
But you yourself...
And they want the Senate to do their job and help push these things across the line.
You yourself have said you would like Donald Trump to use his 35 million Twitter followers to set the agenda and to talk about your policies and so on.
I would love for him to focus more on the great things that he is doing. The stock market is at record high.
Yeah, Bernie's king.
I just wanted to say, I think we need to restore our sense of humanity in this society and across the world. And we don't do that by denigrating people. We do that by focusing on the issues that affect us all. And as she said, using our platforms when we are leaders to put forward those issues without putting people down or name calling.
Annie, what do you think yourself about the tweets by the president?
Well, I know I use social media a lot, and whenever I do see a tweet by the president, I kind of feel embarrassed because I feel like it's not the way a president should speak. And there are a lot of like children, I guess, like not children, but like teenagers on social media, and it just like, it feels bad to see your president speak like that. And yeah.
All right, thank you. Okay, let's move to foreign policy now, the president's foreign policy. Debbie Hall, you have a question.
Do you believe that during President Trump's presidency that we will go to war with North Korea?
Jamie Harrison, Senator Bob Corker has said that we might end up with World War III over North Korea. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres says he's worried that we might sleepwalk into a conflict with North Korea. What do you think?
Listen, Senator Corker and I probably don't agree on much, but you know, war and going into war requires someone with patience and temperament and wisdom. I'm sorry, none of those things I equate with our president. And that's not me being partisan.
The question was, will America go to war with North Korea?
I hope and pray that we do not, because this is not a video game. You know, I have relatives who are in the military right now. There are people who I love in the military. This is not a video game. We cannot go into that. And I'm sorry, Representative Blackburn, it is time. Dr. King said in a letter from Birmingham jail, he said, you know, we're going to have to repent in this generation, not merely for the actions and words of the bad people, but for the appalling silence of the good people. There are good people in the Republican Party, and those people need to, and I salute Senator Corker, they need to stand up and say enough is enough. We can't have our country go into this.
Congressman Marsha Blackburn, I should just say actually that you are tipped to succeed, Senator Bob Corker.
Well, let me say one thing.
Senate
We're here in South
Yep.
Carolina, and our UN ambassador, your former governor, Nikki Haley, is doing a wonderful job, and I think she is to be credited for how she has helped to lead on this issue and to handle this situation.
Could America go to war with North Korea, though? That was the question from Debbie Hall.
When you talk with military leaders, the goal is not to go to war at all with anyone. And I hear some of you in the audience shushing me right now as I'm speaking. What you should want is for us to be praying for these leaders that they make the right decisions
Thank you,
that we
Congressman.
do not do
Thank
that.
you.
I just wanted to say also this, to piggyback on what Congresswoman is stating. We should be praying that no war takes place, but the fact of the matter is America is ready. America is strong. That's why President Trump was elected.
And our allies are with us.
Absolutely.
Whether it's Russia, whether it is North Korea, our allies are glad to see America back at work, focusing on peace through strength, and they appreciate that.
Bernice King.
First of all, obviously, as my father's daughter, I don't even believe in war. However, this would be a foolish war. In the world of nuclear weapons, nobody wins. At the end of the day, this is our humanity that we're talking about, period. And our humanity is not American, it's not Europe, it's not Asia, it's our humanity. And there will be innocent lives lost in this foolish encounter, period.
Next question. Sherilyn Pankow, your question, please.
If it is found to be true that Trump's associates colluded with Russia to affect our election, how can the election truly be considered binding or legally valid?
Frank Luntz.
In terms of Russia, I want to know what the truth is. And so I support this investigation. We have the right to know. But I want them to do their job, and I don't want to suggest that he is innocent or guilty until we find out what actually happened. Mueller is looking at this. We have the House looking at it, the Senate looking at this. Let's see what the truth is, and then we'll decide what we need to do.
All right, thank you. Moving on to domestic policy now. Question from George Hopkins.
Mass shootings in the USA, as happened recently in Las Vegas, seem to be unique to this country and mainly perpetrated by white men. What can be done to prevent or minimize this from happening?
Jamie Harrison.
Listen, I lost a very dear friend here in South Carolina, in Reverend Senator Clemente Pinckney. This is something that is very near and dear to my heart, and it's a very sore spot. We lost a lot of kids in Newtown. We lost a lot of great spirits in Orlando. We lost a lot in Las Vegas. It is time for Congress to step up and do something about the problem that we have in this country. And you know, I think and pray all the time.
We have a congressman here,
yes,
Jamie Harrison, so
but
perhaps
the one thing I would say
pick
is
that up.
faith without works is dead, and that's it.
Congressman.
Democratic Senator Dianne Feinstein said this week that there is no law that would have stopped what happened in Las Vegas. There is a lot of work that we are in the process of doing on mental health. This is a healthcare issue. Much of it is a healthcare issue. There is a lot of work that is being done in this space, and we're going to continue to do that good work and to focus on getting at the root cause of these issues.
A question from Amy Jordan, please.
Yes, hi y'all. Why is Congress so fixated on repealing Obamacare instead of fixing the obvious problems with it, the rising cost of health care, and making health care more affordable for American families like ours?
I'll be happy to answer that, since it's the question to
Marsha
Congress.
Blackburn.
Yes, a problem that we have is the Affordable Care Act is imploding. Tennessee, the health insurance cost has risen 176% since it went on the books. The biggest complaint we get from people is they cannot afford to get the insurance unless they get a subsidy, and once they get the insurance, they cannot afford to use it. So the goal is to make certain that everyone has access to affordable health care, affordable health insurance. The president's actions recently of an executive order that opens up the insurance marketplace, which is my legislation, across state line purchase of health insurance. That is a positive step to getting the cost of health insurance down.
Mark Burns.
Well, you know, again, I disagree with the Congresswoman. competition truly will draw the price of health care down tremendously. And the ultimate goal is that everyone would be able to have a health care policy that would, especially for those of us in the small business. I mean, those of us in small business are affected greatly. The ultimate goal, if we can just open up those lines and allow competition to drive better service and price, we all win.
That's right.
We all win.
Absolutely.
Hospitals are closing across this country in places like South Carolina, 2 in South Carolina, 4 in Alabama, because of Republicans standing in the door and saying no to Medicaid expansion. Yes, Representative Blackburn. Also, in addition, the president just stated that he's going to get rid of those subsidies that low-income and working-income people are getting in order to make it affordable to them, that he's going to get rid of it.
He's removing $7 billion of federal subsidies.
You guys are trying to take it away and cut it away every little bit you can.
That is incorrect.
It's not incorrect.
It is incorrect, Jamie.
All right, a quick
well, just really
response,
quick.
Amy.
Competition sounds really good, but I don't shop for health care. Like, I don't shop around to see which doctor, gives the best price. When you're sick, you go to the doctor, you take the medicine the doctor tells you to take. And Congresswoman, I mean, why aren't we actually talking about bills that would lower the premiums or lower the cost of health care instead of repealing Obamacare for what?
No, we absolutely, those are the bills. I just cited one for you, which opens up the health insurance marketplace and bringing in that competition, letting people buy. Don't you think you should be able to go buy the insurance you want at a price that you can afford? Wouldn't you like to have transparency in the marketplace? A health savings account, call different doctors, find out what things are going to charge, go to one that you like. That's the way you get the cost down.
Thank you. Let's go to our final question now. Our final question, Candy Parker.
I agree we are a divided nation. However, I believe that President Trump is a negotiator and he's willing to compromise to get the job done. Does the panel agree?
Frank Luntz, come to you first.
Congresswoman, I look forward to your election as senator. I hope that when you are a senator, our political system will be more effective, more accountable, and people will listen to each other more. Compromise requires listening. Compromise requires actually hearing, and then compromise requires action. I ask those of you who don't like Donald Trump, I get it, I hear you, and I know why. I really do. Please give those who are willing to challenge him but have an open heart, give them a chance. For those of you who love Donald Trump, hold him accountable for what he says. We're not perfect, none of us.
Pastor Mark Burns.
Well, absolutely, the president would be willing to negotiate him. Ultimately, his vision is to bring a stronger America, and it is only in unity and togetherness can we be strong. We really got to stop focusing on the colors that divide us and really start focusing on the things that unite us. And until we do that, we're heading for complete destruction. It doesn't matter what the president do.
Bernice King.
Well, for me, a true negotiator, or what I would say a true mediator, actually is able to hear both sides and forge a win-win solution. I'm not sure if that's possible.
Jamie Harrison?
I don't believe so.
You don't believe President Trump is a negotiator and willing to compromise?
No.
Congressman Marsha Blackburn.
Yes, President Trump has already shown that he is willing to negotiate, and he did that when it came to funding for the hurricanes, debt ceiling, and a continuing resolution. He worked with Schumer and Pelosi both. In doing that, Donald Trump is determined that he is going to get this nation back on track economically, that he's going to get our foreign policy back on track, and he is so committed to making America great again. And what we need is to agree that as Americans, that is the goal for each of us, to make certain that we are a great nation and continue to be for generations to come, for our children and grandchildren, for their sake.
All right, let me just open it up to the floor and get some reaction, and if you keep your comments as brief as possible, please. Yes.
In Trump's America, chaos reigns. Hypocrisy is a new standard. We've even had to develop language to describe his statements, alternate facts. There is no such thing. And every day, he ramps it up another notch.
Gentleman here.
I am a 19-year-old conservative Republican, and I have 3 military members in my family that are deployed overseas at this time, and I am for damn sure glad Hillary Clinton is not the president of the United States.
Thank you. Last one.
When can we, even as different people, be able to really just get along and make a decision? Because that's really what it's going to take to be able to run this country really like a business. There's differences in all of us, but the concern would be, when can we all be able to just get along?
Thank you. Got to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you to our panel, Marsha Blackburn, Bernice King, Pastor Mark Burns, Jamie Harrison and Frank Luntz. Thanks also to our audience here in Legree, Waringhouse and Charleston, South Carolina, and to you following this edition of Global Questions, wherever you may be in the world. And whatever you may think of Donald Trump, well, clearly he certainly excites a lot of public scrutiny and debate in a way perhaps that we've never seen before from the White House. From me, Zain Abadawi, and the Global Questions team, goodbye.